Hi, welcome to the Onefinity CNC maintenance video. To clean and maintain our machine, we're going to need a few things. The first thing is some 3-in-1 oil, a set of metric Allen keys, a small microfiber rag, and we've got an old towel. The first thing we'll want to do while working on our machine is unplug both the controller and the router for our safety. After that, we will want to remove the screen from its magnetic mount so that we do not bump it and damage it during our work. We recommend that you vacuum all dust and chips off of your machine after every carve. Vacuuming on and around the controller is not recommended. Vacuuming creates static electricity which could possibly damage the delicate electronics inside of the controller. If possible, remove your controller from your work area or use compressed air to blow the dust and chips off of it. Because the Onefinity CNC uses stall homing, we want to make sure that the front of the two Y-axis rails, the left side of the X-axis rail, and the top of the Z-axis are all clean. Along with vacuuming after every cut, we also want to blow off the rails and the ball screws with compressed air every 2 or 3 hours if we're performing a long cut. The next step in maintaining our Onefinity CNC is oiling the ball screws. Before we oil our machine, we need to make sure everything gets plugged back in so that we can move the machine around to break the oil in. On the side of the gantry blocks, there are bronze plates that the ball screws run through. We will be removing a bolt from these bronze plates to access the oil port. There are 4 of these oil ports on the machine. There is one on each Y rail, one on the X rail, and one on the Z that we will need to remove the router to get to. To remove our router, we will need to loosen these bolts, make sure that the Z-axis is as far down as we can get it, and we will also have to remove this top plate. While we have the router off of the machine, this is a great time to blow off the Z gantry with compressed air. The first thing we're going to do when we're oiling our ball screws is we're going to lay a towel down under the rail so that the oil doesn't drip down and ruin our MDF or our waste board. We'll start by removing our oil port bolt, and we're going to put our oil in there until it overflows. Once that's overflowing, we're going to move the machine to the middle, and we're going to do the same thing, fill it up till it overflows. Then we're going to move it all the way to the back and do that same thing one more time. And once that is done, we're just going to jog the machine around to break the oil in. Once we've jogged that around, we are going to put our bolt back into the oil port. Tighten that down and wipe off the excess with a towel. Now that we've done that, we're going to repeat it on the other Y rail and the X rail. Once we've done both of our Y ports and our X port, we move to the Z port. To oil our Z ball screw, we have to get into our port, but this oil port is located behind the bearing. One way to do this would be to completely take the bearing off, but we don't recommend that. Instead, we recommend flooding the top of the ball screw and letting the oil drip down inside. We'll drop our oil down on top of our ball screw, and immediately after oiling this, we are going to jog our Z axis up and down. Our next step is to put a bead of oil on all of our individual rails. Once we do that, we will boot up our machine and we'll jog it around to break the oil in. Once we have our bead of oil on our machine, make sure we have our towel down, and we can use our joypad or our touchscreen to jog the machine around to break the oil in. The last step of maintenance on your machine is to wipe down all the excess oil so it doesn't drip down onto your projects. Once we've finished oiling, our very last step is to make sure that all of our bolts are secure. We're going to start by checking the feet of each rail. There's 2 on the top of the foot and 2 on the bottom that you're probably not going to check since your machine is bolted down. The next set of bolts we're going to check will be the 4 on each side of the X-axis holding it to the gantry. The next thing we're going to check is the plastic bushings on the X and the Y rails. We're going to make sure that that pin is hand tight. Next, we're going to check the 4 bolts holding the Z slider to the gantry. We're going to also tighten the 2 bolts on the brass plate on the ball screw. The next thing we need to focus on is tightening down our bearings. So this bearing runs through the gantry block, and we have 2 set screws on the outside and 2 on the inside. This is the same for each rail. On the bottom, the bearing goes all the way through. We have 2 on the outside and 2 on the inside. We're going to tighten those with a 2.5 millimeter hex key. So we'll just insert that there, give it a good twist, make sure it's snug, and repeat that for all of the set screws. The last section we're going to check is on our Z slider. We're going to check these 2 bolts on our couplers, and we're going to make sure that our router is secured well. This concludes our maintenance video. For more help, please visit our forum, forum.onefinitycnc.com.